This is truly shaping up to be a wild, wild series. The Andy Ibanez game, maybe we call this one. Let's talk about it all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Be sure to check out the Tigers home radio broadcast on the Sirius XM app. Just search Detroit Tigers. And next thing you know, anytime, anywhere, as long as the Tigers are on, you'll be listening to the Tigers home radio broadcast. Very cool app, very cool feature. The Detroit Tigers won a ball game by a final score of 8-6 on Tuesday evening. Really a crazy ball game in what has been a crazy series. This has been very eventful, to say the least, as far as just the first two games of the series. Now, naturally, that means the finale will just be a dud of a ball game, but it's hard to believe that after watching the first two games. Wednesday's game, a day game at 1 o'clock Eastern time at Comerica Park, but this was another absolute battle, just like Monday night ended up being, and it certainly would not shock anybody if the finale was similar. Reese Olson pitched in this game. We got to talk about his start. I think there was a lot to take out of it, good and bad. There was certainly a lot to talk about on the offensive side of the ball, very much including not only Andy Ibanez and what may be called the Andy Ibanez game, but certainly Parker Meadows putting his stamp and putting his fingerprints all over this ball game as well. So we'll be sure to talk about that. Before we get into the ball game, though, I want to talk about some comments that Scott Harris made before Monday's ball game. After Parker Meadows got called up, he kind of had some media availability and got some decent quotes from him there and our amazing beat writers. We had several that had asked Harris about like Justin Henry Malloy and about Colt Keith and kind of like their progress, because everybody's very aware that those are the next two guys that are in line to make their debut at the major league level. And there's even, Wencio Perez is on the 40-man roster. Andre Lipsius, is on the 40-man roster for the time being. Like there's some options that they could go with here when rosters expand only by 2 players now instead of by 15 like it used to be. But there's certainly some conversations to be had and some conversations we will continue to have on this show. But Harris's answers somewhat, I feel like for some of the fan base, kind of rubbed people the wrong way. He had really cited defense as one of the bigger reasons as to why somebody like Justin Henry Malloy was not in the majors right now, and said that, left field, he had only played, I think he said like 9 games at left, and was still learning right field and still had work to do at third base, and said a similar thing about Colt Keith. If it were up to me, I would very much want to give Justin Henry Malloy a look at the major league level. Colt Keith, obviously, we all want to see him. He's the best pure hitting prospect in the organization right now. But I'm not really like losing sleep over Colt Keith not getting a look at the end of this season if that doesn't end up happening. Obviously, if it does happen, I'm going to celebrate it. But that one is not as timely as like Malloy. That's the one that I'm really kind of focusing on and that I'm really curious about, because I think that is every day that goes by, I become much less and less confident that Colt Keith's going to be here this year. Malloy is still weird. That's a complete toss-up to me. And I kind of go back and forth on it often. And citing defense is really interesting for a team that has had so much struggles offensively over the last several years. And I know that that's what kind of pissed a lot of people off, but it's just really, baseball really is poetic. And we had one of the most just atrocious defensive displays of the season on Monday, right? We talked about it yesterday. We talked about Like Badu struggled defensively. Vierling had some struggles defensively. And like as a whole, I think Vierling's been a plus defender at third base, but like he had a play there. Torkelson struggled defensively in that game and on Tuesday night's game. Like it just really is, people got all upset about like, oh, like, well, we want the bats, whatever, like forget the defense. And then, baseball does baseball things and you're kind of proven as to why that comment may hold a little bit of truth. So again, for Malloy, like I still think it's very easy to find a spot for him on the 40-man roster. I don't think it's going to take like reinventing the wheel to really figure out how to get him on the 40-man or on the 26-man. I still would like to see him in September when the roster does expand. You can afford to hold on to an extra batter. I think that's a good time for him to come up. But I don't know if he really is struggling defensively, and a lot of people have said that he is. I kind of at least can understand why, even though I do. Again, if it was up to me, I'd still make some room for him. But I'm not like getting my pitchfork out about how stupid of a comment that is either. I guess that's kind of where I stand. So just wanted to bring that up and just talk about the progress that these players are making and kind of where they stand currently within the organization. Let's talk about this game, though. 8-6 final. Reese Olson started the ball game. His final line would be 4 2/3, 4 hits, 6 earned runs, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, 2 home runs against. His ERA balloons up to 5.29 on the season. This was a start where it was kind of the epitome of Reese Olson so far. Like this was really good until it wasn't. It is really just the perfect way to kind of describe this one. His stuff, we all are well aware, like his stuff has never been an issue. His slider specifically has definitely never been an issue. That is a legitimate plus pitch. The problem is he hung 2 of them very, very badly. Like the 2 of the most perfect home run pitches you will ever see to Jeimer Candelario, who we'll talk about in a second, and then Dansby Swanson, who just deposited the ball to right and left field. So ends up getting 6 earned runs because Brennan White gives up a couple of runs again on a Dansby Swanson single. Then both of those were inherited runners. So Olson's on the hook, unfortunately, for all 6 runs in this ball game. But it was the first time through the lineup. The biggest thing that jumped out at me was that he was not afraid to throw his fastball low in the strike zone. And it was very apparent. He went from, I want to say in the first inning, he had like 3 or maybe even 4 called strikes on low fastballs. And his willingness and just like, I don't know, not being afraid to throw that pitch there was great early on. But I tweeted it out, and clearly the situation developed how it developed. That is not going to work the second time through the lineup. It's great that it worked the first time. You haven't done that all year. It's not in the scouting report. These dudes are thrown off by the fact that you're throwing low fastballs for strikes. That's awesome. First time through the lineup, it worked. First 2.5 innings, it worked. As soon as the lineup flipped over, his second time through the lineup, he got absolutely rocked. And I think one of the reasons why he didn't throw it too much more, but like there was an at-bat to Cody Bellinger. I don't know why I threw an L in there. There was an at-bat to Cody Bellinger in this game that I think was like the perfect kind of like explanation of what I'm saying. So the perfect highlight of what I'm explaining rather. And it was he had gotten Bellinger twice on low fastballs for called strikes. One of them was a strike 3. In the previous at bat, he had gotten a low and away fastball to Bellinger for strike 3. Cody knew it. He got upset. He went back to the dugout. And in the first inning, he got him as well on a low strike late in the count. I don't remember if it was strike 3 or not, but it was definitely either strike 2 or strike 3. The third at bat, it's a 2-strike count, and he just throws a low and away fastball again, and Bellinger just flicks his wrist and deposits it into left field for a double. That's the kind of thing where like you have to develop past that. You have to understand that for a player of that caliber, I know he had his struggles, last year and the year before, but like this is a former MVP who this season has a 924 OPS and a batting average of 321. This dude is playing phenomenal baseball. He's going to get some down ballot MVP votes. He's been one of the best players in baseball this season. you're not going to get away with it 3 times. And so if this was a guy whose OPS was in the 600s and it was a clear cold zone throughout the entire season, that's one thing. That this is not that. And so that was kind of like the again, like just the epitome of his entire outing was just like you got ahead early, you found something that worked, and then when your back was against the wall and you had to adjust, he really didn't. And like the 2 hanging sliders were the 2 hanging sliders. That's just gonna happen with a young pitcher whose best pitch is a breaking ball. That's just naturally going to kind of happen early on in his career. He's going to give up some home runs via the slider. Hopefully he's able to adjust past it and doesn't turn into like a home run, a pitcher who gives up a ton of homers. But the other pitch is a lot more under, I don't want to say under your control because the slider's under his control too, but it's a lot more, that's more like pitch sequencing and not just like, oh, sometimes you're going to hang a pitch. So that one frustrated me, honestly, more than the home runs did. And he gave up a ton of base runners later on in the outing for that exact reason. He just kept doing stuff like that over and over again. And you got to adjust. You got to realize that it's not going to work the second, third time through the lineup. So let's keep talking about it on the other side of the break. But first, I got to tell you all about our friends over at eBay Motors. eBay Motors, where is eBay Motors? There it is. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit, and it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits just right the first time around. Just add your ride to the My Garage and look for a green check mark to know that a part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop at eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right part is guaranteed. So get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2 of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We'll be back tomorrow recapping the series finale against the Chicago Cubs. Put yourself in a position to take a series. We're always going to take that, especially against a team who's like playing for a playoff spot. The Cubs are playing for something. So being able to play spoilers is kind of nice. So wrapping up Reese Olson, yeah, like it's one of those things where that slider is gonna do a lot of damage, and it's also going to probably be hit for a lot of damage as well. Like in this game, it had a 32% CSW percentage, called strikes plus whiffs percentage, with 6 whiffs, the most whiffed on pitch of his entire arsenal. Had several called third or swinging missed third strikes via the slider. It's a plus pitch. But, young pitchers, we'll talk about it in a second with Brendan White as well. A lot of pitchers who have sliders as their best pitch early on tend to have to work through that. And some do work through it and fix it and come out the other side as a even more effective and a really good pitcher. And some guys, it just is going to perpetually be a home run giving up pitch. So we'll see how he develops, but something to keep an eye on there. And then obviously the fastball, every single start is something to keep an eye on with Reese Olson. Let's talk about the bullpen in this ball game. I promise we'll get to the fun stuff here in a second. But Brendan White threw 1 1/3, 1 hit, technically no earned runs to his name, no walks, and a strikeout against, but gave up, like I said, 2 inherited runners in this ball game. So his ERA goes down. Brendan White is another, really a lot of the similar conversation. Like his slider is so good. It's so good when it is located right. And when he can place that thing, what is that, glove side, low and away? Well, I just said glove side and then low and away. Low glove side, he can be very, very effective. And that pitch can be very, very effective. The problem is he has a just very, very, very frequent tendency to leave that over the heart of the plate. And that is why his ERA is over 4.5. And that is why he gave up the run. I mean, the RBI single to Dansby Swanson was a slider that could not have been right over the middle of the plate. And he kind of has like a sweeper too that goes slower than the slider. And I don't know. It's interesting. I'm not against it at all. I think that could be an effective kind of tunneling mix there, but it's not when you don't have command of half of them. And the four-seam fastball, he doesn't have a bad four-seamer, but it's never going to be his best pitch. So we'll see. It really is just, it all comes down to command of his slider. It always has in his entire major league tenure so far, and I think it will continue to do so. Tyler Holton is unbelievable. 1 1/3 of perfect baseball, no strikeouts needed, a 1.62 ERA on the season, threw his changeup more than any other pitch in this ball game. Only had 1 whiff. And it just doesn't matter because he doesn't give up hits and he doesn't give up runs, and he's absolutely incredible. It's to the point now where this dude should get down ballot Rookie of the Year votes. I'm not saying he should win AL Rookie of the Year over Gunnar or anything like that, but like he deserves like a 4th or a 5th place AL Rookie of the Year vote, at least one. I don't care if he ends up being 4th or 5th place, but multiple people in the league should absolutely put down ballot votes on for this guy because he absolutely deserves it. He's pitched a boatload of innings and has a 1.62 ERA. He goes multiple innings often. He's absolutely ridiculous. He's here for like a minute. And he's obviously not going to put up a 1.62. This dude is not Mariano Rivera, unfortunately. Like, he's not going to put up a 1.6 ERA his entire career. And the projective stats are way higher, right? Like, his FIP is in the 3s. But, like, I'll take a 3 ERA lefty for the next 4 years. Like, even if it does balloon a little bit, and he's not, like, some out of this world, again, like, prime Mariano Rivera pitcher, like, it's still a valuable find, even if his projective stats are closer to reality long-term than his ERA. I love him. I absolutely love him. And I think Hinch uses him in the perfect spots as well. I wouldn't mind me, last season when the Tigers had a surprisingly really, really deep bullpen last year. And it was the only good thing about last season. And so Jason Foley, we had such a deep pen where Jason Foley was like the 5th or 6th best reliever on the team. And so he was like very often the guy who was first out of the bullpen. I wouldn't mind it if Tyler Holton kind of took over that role where like Foley and Lang, are going to get the back end. If one of them are not available, then you kind of have to hold on to Holton for like the 7th or 8th inning. But if both of those dudes are available, I would kind of like to see Tyler Holton take over that. Like, hey, give us an inning and a half or even 2 innings, entering in the 5th or 6th to bridge us to the back end of our pen. But certainly no complaints. He's been phenomenal. Jason Foley gives up a couple of hits, still scary. Doesn't give up any runs, however. Back to throwing mostly sinkers. And, got a little hairy there, 2nd and 3rd, 2 outs, but still got his ground ball and didn't give up any runs. His ERA is now 2.6. And then Alex Lang, hats off to Alex Lang, man. 1 inning, 1 hit, 1 strikeout, no walks. Was all around the strike zone in this ball game, was throwing curveballs in the strike zone in this ball game. His last 3 outings have been significant improvements, just over not even like walk and K numbers specifically, even though they have been just like finding the zone period. Like he's just throwing the ball in the strike zone, which for a month he literally wasn't doing. So good to see in that area as well. Let's get to the offense. Andy Ibanez. Again, the Andy Ibanez game perhaps goes 2 for 3 with 4 RBIs, 2 home runs, and draws a walk. That might be the most impressive part of the whole thing. If you know Andy Ibanez, you know that he is not a big fan of drawing walks. So that might be more impressive than a 2-homer game. But for real, when this lineup came out, I almost tweeted out. I tweeted about it later too. And I said something along the lines of like, boy, am I glad I did not hit send tweet on that or send post, whatever the heck that website's called now, on my post that had said, what is Andy Ibanez doing in the 2-hole? And I said it, I posted that, whatever, after his first home run in like the first inning. I posted that, and that it came even more and more true as the game went along. 2 home runs and a walk. Phenomenal ball game. And look, that's like Andy Ibanez giveth and Andy Ibanez taketh away. Like he's just the type of hitter where because he hacks at literally everything, he's going to piss you off sometimes, and he's going to have some stretches where he's just not effective, right? Like he's going to have some multiple week stretches where he just is, the ball isn't falling and he's just doing really nothing at the plate. And then he's going to have stretches where he is one of the hottest hitters on the entire team. And that's just how Andy Ibanez is. So as a he has a 708 OPS after this game. We'll gladly take that. That's a higher OPS than Matt Vierling on the season, right? Like that's for a guy who was picked up for nothing. I think that this has been a successful waiver claim for Scott Harris. I don't think Andy Ibanez is like the second baseman of the future. I don't think that he's going to be on. I wouldn't even expect him to be on this baseball team next year. I think he's probably someone that they part ways with in the winter, but certainly not because he was awful. All the respect in the world. A great pickup by the front office, and certainly the reason why I think he's gone is because I think he probably earned a one-year contract somewhere in the league this winter. So good for him. Good for him. Hasn't had a power surge this year. Hitting a lot more homers than he has in his major league career this season. So good on him. Good for Andy Ibanez. Another kind of not development. He's a elder statesman. He's not old, but you get what I'm trying to say. Another reclamation project success story for this front office this season. We've had a couple haven't gone our way, but that is certainly one that Andy Ibanez has been fine. Still below league average hitter, but has been fine and had a 2 home run game in this one. That's like a game where you look at someone's WAR at the end of the year and they're like, he should have 1 WAR for this game alone. Like we literally do not win this ball game without Andy Ibanez. So good on him. Let's talk about the rest of the offense. And then we got to talk a little bit about Parker Meadows. We will do that right after I tell you all about our friends over at Margs. This episode is brought to you by Margs Sparkling Margaritas. Y'all know I love a good drink, and I've been trying to find a replacement for the typical like White Claws and High Noons of the world. Thank goodness, a couple of months back, before the summer started, I stumbled upon Margs. They are refreshing, they're ready to drink, and they are sparkling margaritas that have officially become my go-to cocktail. They're crafted with real Blanco tequila. They're clean, crisp, and they genuinely taste so good. There's 5 unique flavors. There's something for everyone to enjoy. I've been packing my cooler with these all summer long, kicking back after work, watching a game on the weekends, hanging out with friends, you name it. It's the perfect cocktail for the event. And I think they're going to be the perfect tailgating drink this fall as well. So find a retailer near you at sipmargs.com. That's SIPMARGS.com to find a retailer near you. You must be 21 and over to enjoy. Cheers, and please drink responsibly. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Be sure to check out the Tigers home radio broadcast on the SiriusXM app. Just search Detroit Tigers. The next thing you know, anytime, anywhere, as long as the game's on, you'll be listening to the Tigers home radio broadcast. So we talked about the pitching in this ball game. We've talked about Andy Ibanez. Let's get to the rest of the offense. Spencer Torkelson finally does not hit a homer. He goes 0 for 3, but also draws 2 walks. I liked every at-bat except the one where Parker Meadows was on third base with 1 out. That's a pretty inexcusable situation, to be honest with you. That just can't happen. And this team, again, we've talked about their struggles with runners in scoring position all season. They are in the bottom 5 with runners in scoring position statistically in the entire game of baseball. This game, they go 3 for 12 with RISP. That's not awful batting average wise, but you still left, 9 situations you had runners in scoring position and failed in all of them. 9 team left on base when it's all said and done. But the biggest for me was twice in this ball game, 2 separate times. I think there might be back-to-back innings even. It was definitely at most 2 and 3 innings, or twice in 2 innings rather. It might have even been back-to-back innings. They had a runner on third with less than 2 outs. It wasn't Parker Meadows. It was Andy Ibanez that was on third for Torkelson. They had runners on third less than 2 outs and did not score them either time. And look, they won the ball game. That's great. But these, we talk about, you're literally on yesterday's show for the first game of this series. Those can cost you. Those will cost you. And that's the next step for this team. They're hitting a bunch of homers. That is great. we love to see it. We're glad that all these guys are starting to find their power stroke, and that's awesome. But situational hitting is a need, and this offense still grades out as one of the worst in all of baseball for, in large part, that reason. And now, the rest of the season they were hitting home runs. Now they are. That's obviously a big part to do with it as well. But you need to be able to score not via the homer as well, right? You need to. Minnesota Twins and New York Yankees, that one season, was that 2019? Both had like the most home runs hit by a single team in a single season ever, and neither of them really did anything in the postseason. Need some situational hitting. So that is still very, very frustrating. Twice it drove me nuts. It really did. One was the Parker Meadows triple, which we'll talk about in a second, and then one was Andy Ibanez, who walked, then stole second. The ball got thrown to center field, got to third, and Torkelson was up for that one and struck out. So that one kind of frustrated me. Speaking of risk, though, on the good end of the aisle here, Kerry Carpenter goes 1 for 2 with 2 walks and a hit by pitch. He reached base, 4 times in this ball game and had 2 RBIs. He's now batting .288 with a .895 OPS. He is almost at a .900 OPS this season. The dude's an absolute monster. Going into this ball game, Kerry Carpenter was hitting well over 300 with an OPS of almost 1,000 with runners in scoring position. And again, that is on a team who is in the bottom 5 in baseball statistically in OPS and batting average with RISP. So good on Kerry Carpenter. Him and Zach Short went 0 for twice with runners in scoring position in this ball game. So Water may be finding its level a little bit there, but Kerry Carpenter proving to be one of the only players on this team that can consistently hit with runners in scoring position. And the torque thing dates back this whole stretch. Like it's a weird thing. He's been on a huge heater, but with runners in scoring position, he seems to expand the strike zone and has a tendency to strike out. So another adjustment that he has to make. Hopefully he will. Kerry Carpenter, we just talked about. Jake Rogers, 1 for 5 with a double, had a very hard hit ball with the bases loaded. Unfortunately, did not come through there. Trying to think of anything else. Zach McKinstry with a nice RBI single. That was good. Zach Short, like I said, a couple of big at-bats didn't come through in either of them. Let's talk about Parker Meadows. So Parker Meadows ends this game going 2 for 3 with a walk and a strikeout. The strikeout, low curveball, that's probably going to happen, especially early on here. Like his strikeout numbers were not like incredibly low throughout the minors. So that's something that right when he got called up, we said on this show, I'm looking for it. I'm looking to see what his strikeout rate is early on. But a phenomenal baseball game by Parker Meadows. Not only the 2 for 3, he had, this is like it's not as much as it used to be. Like when it first started happening, it was like genuinely a unicorn, the power speed combo. And it's becoming more and more frequent in today's day and age of baseball, but like it's still so fun and so impressive. This dude had the hardest hit ball between either team in this entire game. 108 miles an hour off the bat to dead center field. That was his triple. On the triple, he reached 29.9 feet per second. Okay. That is very fast. If you're not aware of like how fast that is, I tweeted this out. Ellie De La Cruz leads baseball in average feet per second in sprint speed, right? And it is 30.6 for him. So you're within the realm, that's not as fast, but like you are within the conversation of like literally the 10 or 15 fastest players in baseball are all in that 30 to 30 and a half range. And he reached that while, again, having the hardest hit ball of the game and hit a lot of home runs in the minor leagues. So he's exciting. And that's another thing that I said right when he got called up. I don't know what the numbers are going to look like when it's all said and done. I don't know if he's going to be a guy who can have an OPS like, in the 800s when it's all said and done. He might be like a high 700s OPS guy who can walk and run into some homers, but he's going to give you plus defense. We saw the diving catch in this game. Awesome. And he's just an electric factory. Like the way that he plays is just so dang fun. power speed combo guys are some of the most fun players to watch for plays like that triple and the play he made in center field. Whatever he ends up doing, the offense is obviously going to determine how good of a major league player he will be, but the floor is there. And the floor is he's going to give you wreak havoc on the base pass and give you some plus defense in a very big Comerica Park, and has the ability to hit the ball hard as well when he's seeing it well. So awesome game for Parker Meadows, and just electric really is the word. If it wasn't for Andy Ibanez just hitting multiple homers and having the game of his life, Parker Meadows would have easily been the storyline in this ball game. Plus defense from him, minus defense from Spencer Torkelson. Want to touch on that for a second as well. He's had a really brutal defensive series. And the thing about Tork is, he's turning a corner offensively. That's awesome. But he grades out extremely poorly on the defensive side of things. And we've had this conversation a lot on this show. I want to say about a month and a half ago, there was a big argument about like Torkelson's defense. And it's pretty simple in my eyes. I don't understand why there's such a big argument about it, because it's very simple. He is elite at scooping. Okay. All the metrics say it. He has like the second most scoops in all of baseball. Part of that is because he has a ton of opportunities, because Javi throws the ball in the dirt. But like, this is a guy who is very, very good at scooping. He is not good at literally any other aspect of defensive first base. His outs above average is brutal. His DRS is brutal. He grades out poorly across the board defensively. He's had 2 balls going between his legs this series. That's really, and he shouldn't be. He's athletic enough to be way better than this. So that'll be another thing to keep an eye on in his development. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I did this yesterday too. I feel like I'm leaving stuff on the table. Oh, there is one more thing really quickly. It is official. This was official like 2 days ago, maybe even 3 days ago, but we haven't said it on the show. The Tigers will get the Little League Classic in Williamsport next season against the New York Yankees. That's super cool. We haven't had like we haven't even gotten Sunday night baseball in like ages, right? Like we are not a team that lately has been getting selected for too many nationally televised marketing opportunities because they haven't wanted to market our product as like a sign to watch baseball. So, steps in the right direction or whatnot, however you feel about where the Tigers stand currently in their rebuild and exiting their rebuild, it's objectively nice to just see them get on the national stage again. That's kind of cool. So we'll see that next summer. That'll be a fun thing. I think that's everything. I wanted to cover. Tomorrow's game, today as you're listening to this, Wednesday's game, a 1-10 start time. Tyone against Scooble. You are set up really, really well to win this series. We're not going to say the W word. We're not going to say the jinx word that has gotten us in trouble throughout this season. But if there was ever a game I would feel confident using the word, it would be this one. Tyone has not been good this season, an ERA of over 5.5. He has really struggled. He's had a couple of decent starts in there. It hasn't all been terrible, but like as a whole, 5.56 ERA, and you have maybe your best pitcher, objectively one of your 2 best starting pitchers on the mound. The setup is there. Take advantage. That's what good teams do. Also, you really need it because you're about to get Houston after this, and Houston is Houston. So it would be really, really nice to go into this weekend series with a series victory under our belt, but we'll see. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every single day. We'll be back tomorrow recapping the series finale against the Chicago Cubs. Then we have an off day on Thursday, so we got to figure out what to talk about then. Maybe we have a mailbag. Maybe. We'll figure it out. I'll see y'all then, though. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch y'all tomorrow, baby. Go Tigers.